Hi there, my name is Sue Nelson, and for the next half hour or so we're going to be talking all things food and drink. I'm joined by my fellow presenter, Ollie Lloyd of Great British Chefs. Hi there, Ollie.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. As usual, we're never happier than when we've got stuff to taste.
No, I know, it's exciting.
We've got stuff to taste. Now, our guests today are James Law of Flint Drinks. Hi, James.
Hi.
I'm a little fan of your Hibiscus Gin and Tonic.
Thanks very much.
And Jeremy Pang of School of Wok, who's
Hello.
regularly on the television, aren't you? Walking away.
Yeah, radio's a bit different for me, isn't it?
Radio. We love radio. We love radio. So we're gonna start with you, James. Now, you won a FoodTalk Awards. That was all in the Taste Drink Awards. So so we love you because that's one of our radio awards. Well done.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
And basically, you hand make a range of tonics and seltzers, which I always have trouble saying, and sodas, and then you match them with gin or rum or vodka or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. I mean, we actually come from a craft beer background, so everything that we do is heavily influenced by the craft beer scene, you know, from the way that we make things to the way we sort of communicate them and the way that we aspire to creating products that are as best as they can be. So yes, we make the bases of our drinks from our Arch and Bethnal Green, very craft beer-esque, and
very
then we match them
fashionable at the moment.
exactly, and then we collaborate. Every drink that we make is then in collaboration with a craft spirit producer, whether it be East London Liquor or Kiki Wiki Mezcal or Rum Booty and Rum. We go out and we find our personal favourite pick of the best independent craft spirits producers, and we say, okay, we're going to make a ginger drink. What do we want that drink to taste like? Who do we want to partner with? And how do we go out and make that? So, yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do.
Well, now, my favourite drink of all time is Negroni. And Ollie's favourite drink of all time is Mezcal, I think.
Which
No.
I thought it was.
Well, there's the Arak, with the Arak,
Arak.
Sri Lankan Arak.
Okay.
Whoa.
But for me, the old-fashioned is the killer,
Okay.
the killer cocktail.
Okay.
So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Negroni because you might not know about Negroni. The most widely reported account is that it was first mixed in Florence in 1919. Don't know whether you knew that, James. And Count Camillo Negroni concocted it by asking the bartender to strengthen his favourite cocktail, the Americano, which is 1 measure Campari, 1 measure red vermouth with some soda. But he asked the bartender to add some gin, because obviously it wasn't strong enough. And then he added an orange garnish, so you can tell the difference between that and, the normal one, which would have a lemon garnish. And then the Negroni family founded the Negroni distillery because it was so popular.
That's right.
And Orson Welles was a bit of a fan.
Was he? I didn't know that. That doesn't
yeah.
surprise me. He probably
Orson
likes a
Welles.
bit of everything.
Yeah, I think he probably did like me. And he described it by saying, the bitters are excellent for your liver, the gin is bad for you, they balance each other perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, and that is my favourite drink, because I love that Italian sourness.
Yeah.
And then there's a slight bit of soft sweetness there with if you get decent vermouth, sorry martini, but not that one.
You want the good stuff.
Good stuff.
Touchy,
Yeah, definitely.
It feels quite exotic still, doesn't it? It's like a drink that
Very exotic.
some people will look at you and think you're crazy drinking that. It's
Yeah.
the bitterness. I think there's like a sort of almost a challenge around it. And if you like it and other people don't like it, that kind of feels quite good
quite like that.
sometimes. Yeah.
You do a Negroni one, don't you?
We do, but we do it slightly differently again. So there's a Negroni called a Sabaliato. So the theory behind this is that a speed rail is what a bartender will have when you see them sort of getting all their drinks ready. And if they grab the Prosecco instead of the gin, they've made a mistake. So they add the Prosecco into the drink. It's longer, it's lighter, it's slightly carbonated. And Italian for broken or mistake is Sabaliato. So a Negroni Sabaliato is made with a Prosecco instead of a gin. So that's what our drink is. But we go another step further and we add a little bit of orange juice to it to make it slightly lighter and fruity. And we call it a session Negroni. Because
a session Negroni.
A session Negroni. A bit like, again, going back to beer, a bit like the Americans started making session IPAs, which are lower. So in America, an IPA will be 7-8%. A session IPA will be 5%. So our Negroni Sabaliato is 5% alcohol. So that means you can have 3 or 4 of them in the same sort of pace that you would with beer without finding yourselves
on the floor
making a mistake.
That's what we need tonight. I'm going out tonight, so I'll try that.
Yes. Negroni Sabaliato.
Yeah.
Sabaliato.
Yeah.
You haven't bought any for me though, have you, James?
No, we didn't. We focused on the gins today.
Thanks.
So you did say the gin and tonic was your favourite.
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
you
we'll
go.
get some more sent over.
Now, I know you also have a mezcal one,
We do.
and that is a distilled alcoholic beverage made from any type of, is it called agave? Is that how you
Agave,
pronounce it? Yeah. And that's mostly from Mexico, which is where you drink it, isn't it? Because you're well-travelled.
I have, yeah, drunk that.
And for anybody who doesn't know, the agave plant looks a little bit like a cactus, but it's not a cactus. Its flowers are edible and the sap tastes like honey water. And it's thought that the fermentation of this mash, which is then distilled, has been going on for 200 years. So very traditional drink. And generally it's got a sort of smoky flavour, I would say.
Yeah.
Do
And
Do you know where the
lethal.
smoke comes from?
No.
Wow. So I was out in Oaxaca last Christmas.
That is a great place.
It's an awesome place.
Not the
I spent a
restaurant.
Christmas in Oaxaca once.
Yeah,
Oh, such a good
fantastic. Love it. I could talk about that a lot, but let's focus on the mezcal. Different spelling to the Britishisation of Oaxaca. It's the proper Mexican place, obviously. And what they do is they take the heart of the agave plant, which actually is a succulent, but it wouldn't look like a succulent to you and I. And they slice all the leaves off. And when they've done that, it looks a bit like a pineapple. Big, big pineapple, 200 pounds. And it's called a piña, which is the Mexican word for pineapple. And they slice it in half and they bury it in a pit that's lined with... people think it's volcanic rocks. I still say that, but apparently they're river rocks, strictly speaking. Sounds to me like that would explode, but I didn't argue with the guy who was telling me this at the time. You wouldn't have either.
No, probably not.
And they light a big fire in a pit. They wait for the fire to burn down. Then they put the piñas in and they cover it in earth. And they let it sit there for 2 or 3 days. So the process of turning the starch into sugar, which is basically what a lot of production of alcohol is involved
Natural
with.
fermentation, really.
It's not really the fermentation, it's the conversion, it's the chemical conversion from starch to sugars, which you can then ferment.
And that comes from the heat.
Yeah, so the
right,
heat
okay.
process, same with when you're malting whiskey,
Yeah,
malts of whiskey, that's where you get the smoke from in the traditional purpose because of the peat. So it's a very similar process. Once it's been heated for 2 or 3 days, it's obviously... has a huge amount of that smoke embedded into the piña. So when they turn that into a beer, which is the first process, no hops obviously, that then the smoke follows the process through there, then they distill it and the smoke carries on again. So you end up with this wonderful, rich, maybe not rich because it's a white spirit, but this kind of amazing smoky spirit. And when I was there, they had an IBC, which is one of those big plastic containers, which I thought was for washing your hands after you'd been tasting this sticky agave pulp. And I said, can I wash my hands? And they're like, yeah, go over there, wash your hands, turn on the tap of the IBC, the water starts sliding out. And all of a sudden I hear this big shout, no, wrong IBC. Pure mezcal that I'm washing my hands.
Wow.
Nice.
Did you lick your fingers?
How
I did
expensive
many
is
times.
that?
Yeah. Anyway, so very fascinating product.
And you make a grapefruit, sour cherry, and mezcal
Paloma, yeah. So Paloma, if you go to a bar, I don't know, in Santa Fe or something, will be Ting grapefruit soda, which is packed full of sugar and all that kind of stuff, with tequila, and it's an interesting drink. But we decided to make something that's a little bit more refined. Now, we took a cold pressed grapefruit juice from Sundance in Covent Garden. So there, if you work in the bar industry, you'll often see Sundance juices. They're very pure, unpasteurized, amazing things. They literally just squish the fruit, send it to us. That's all they do. And then we make a sour cherry and thyme macerate, which is the process of putting...
That sounds really nice, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we take a dried sour cherry and just fresh thyme, and we put it in overproof vodka at 60% for 2 days to pull out the flavour from that. Then we blend all of that together, add the mezcal from Kiki Riki, who are based in Homerton. So we say it's mezcal.
Keeping it local.
Yeah, it's mezcal from Oaxaca via Homerton, which I quite like. And then, carbonate it, obviously, and that's our drink. Now, we are the first people in the world to have made a bottled, ready-to-drink mezcal product. And we actually got interviewed by the sort of leading mezcal blog in the States, funny enough, in California, I think
There's
it is.
a mezcal blog.
Yeah, Mezcalista.
Of course there is, yeah.
If you're involved in mezcal, then you read the Mezcalista's blog. They were like phoning me up saying, why are you crazy guys in London using mezcal? You know, how the hell did this come about? So we tell them the story and I forget. So that was quite good fun.
But James, you haven't bought any for me to taste.
No, I'm
either,
so
have you?
sorry. I'm so sorry.
When you can send, we'll give you our address. You can send. Some,
I will do.
some
I will do.
stuff
If
to
you've
us.
not tried it, you absolutely have to. It's
I mean,
amazing.
the interesting thing though about the product you've got though is that they are ready to drink cocktails, and that's a really emerging sector because if you look at the cocktail world at home, I mean, obviously when people go out to bars and they might have a cocktail, but actually the cocktail consumption at home remains relatively conservative. In the sense that it's gin and tonic, it's vodka and tonic, it might be something else on a combination. And even take mezcal as an example. I mean, less than 2% of people are actually claiming to drink that at home regularly.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, even amongst the foodie population, it has not yet really caught on. And I think what's interesting about the cocktail spaces is that, obviously, the food world really benefits from the master chefs and the bake-offs and the Great British Menu and lots of sites like Great British Chefs that are celebrating how to create really interesting food. But actually, the cocktail making thing remains relatively niche. And I think,
but any drinks program is
banned, basically.
Yeah.
Which is such a shame because that they're so frightened of making a drinks program, i.e., that you could be blending staff or that it's completely off the television. It's mad.
And you talk about the process you've just described, which I've seen as well. The mezcal making outside of Oaxaca. Actually, these are beautiful processes, and it actually helps people to understand how these drinks are made and what goes into it and the craft that goes into it. But I'm interested that so you've taken the approach of going down the pre-mixed drink. Is this mainly for at-home consumption, or is it where are you trying to?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, again, beer's my background. So I was working at a brewery called Crate over in Hackney Wick.
Oh yeah.
Which, if you've not been, you should go. Amazing pizza, great beer, canal side location in the summer, awesome.
Which basically before the Olympics would essentially have just been a war zone.
Yeah, well, there's a story about that. Anyway, we can come on to that. But when I was working there, obviously they have this. Well, not obviously, but they have this incredible tap room where the staff, the people that work there, the brewers are all excited about beer. And so they should be. That's what they're creating. So they sell their own beer, but they also sell beer from the rest of London and beer from around the world, America and places like this. Now, if you come to Crate and you don't drink beer, you're in a bit of a pickle. You've come on, a craft journey, let's say, if you want to sort of adopt the marketing speak. And you arrive there and you say, I don't drink beer, so you're handing a glass of red wine or a glass of Prosecco, which is a bit boring. So the inspiration for Longflint came about, well, there must be something that can be produced with the same sort of care and attention as beer that is ready to drink. And I didn't really think about the category. I didn't really think about, the history of what these are, the alco pop and all that, which, people always want to talk to us about. I just wanted to make drinks that were really natural, that tasted amazing, that used great craft spirits.
But your stuff's far too grown up to be described as an alco pop.
Yeah, I guess, when people are looking for sort of connections to what it is that we are, and if they're from the 80s, 90s, that's something they talk about. But
this category doesn't really exist. I mean, the ready-to-drink cocktail category is... So doesn't So you walk into a bar and most of the time the barmen are average. You take your average bar. They're obviously a place where there are some incredible bartenders.
Yeah, sure.
But you take your average pub. Like God help you if they try and start knocking up some of these cocktails. So I think that space is really interesting.
Yeah. So we talk about a couple of things. We talk about we're not here to replace the drama and the excitement of the cocktail. If you go to Zeta Townhouse, for example,
or Cobra,
you put your best bib and tucker on, you take your friends and you go 2 or 3 times a year and you have an amazing time. I think historically people that have tried to do a bottle cocktail have tried to recreate that. Now we talk about the mojito. The mojito is an amazing drink. You're at a bar, there's a girl mixing you a drink, the mint's going in, the sugar's going in, the rum's going in, the lime, everyone's high-fiving, and you sit there and you drink it. If you go to your mate's barbecue and you take the ring pull off a can, it's like a big balloon deflating. It's never gonna hit that sort of same level.
It's a nice looking can though.
Absolutely, but this is different. So what we talk about is we don't talk about recreating, we talk about creating. So the Hibiscus Gin Tonic, which we have here, is made by cold brewing hibiscus flowers. Then we make a tonic water with that brew by adding acids from apple and pear and some natural quinine. And then East London Liquors gin, and that's the drink that we've made.
That's about to take a look.
Of course, we'll
so James, can you stop
Should we crack it open?
Get that open so we can have a chat. So this is the Hibiscus Gin and Tonic. This is our award-winning one from the Food Talk Radio Awards. One of the things in your research, Ollie, the cost of pre-made drinks. So we know Pritesh Modi from World of Zing, and he does make amazing Negroni, by the way, proper full strength.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you're talking about £34 a bottle. That's quite expensive.
We just necked our water to replace it with gin.
Yeah. and that I think that's. But the reality is there's a challenge around all these categories. The same is true of the world of tea, and the same is true of the world of coffee, which is eventually people do understand that you need to spend a certain amount of money on the raw material and you're prepared to therefore upsell. But I mean, what are these? What are your bottles? So the bottle we're looking at is what, 150 ml,
250 ml, 250 ml, yeah.
And there's a 250 ml bottle with a metal cap, and that's retailing at
in Whole Foods or
£58.60.
The bottle's $3.99. The can's about $2.79. So it's really interesting the point about the bars and pubs. A lot of our trade, the on trade, which is bars and pubs and restaurants, that kind of thing, come to us because the craft beer thing is taking over in the same way that gastropubs did 15, 20 years ago. Every pub now that is trying to push that quality message is serving craft beer, or what we like to talk about is local beer. If you serve great local beer, then these products are probably going to be right for you, because your staff, again, are trained to talk about craft beer and to serve craft beer in the best way possible. They're not trained to serve cocktails. And exactly the point you were highlighting, if you go into a pub and you ask for a cocktail, there's a very good chance you'll end up with an abomination. So we're creating things that, yes, they're bottled cocktails, but they're made with that same ethos as craft beer. So therefore, the staff, the owners can feel proud to serve them, and hopefully the customers enjoy drinking them, because they are drinks that, cold brew hibiscus flowers, mezcal with thyme and cherry macerates. They're stories, and they're crafted with quality and care and attention, and they taste.
But at £3, you're actually at the same kind of level as a quality beer.
Yeah.
I mean, for a 10, if you...
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you were saying to me before we went on air is that you can quaff this at the same pace as somebody's drinking a beer.
Yeah.
Because it's 5%.
Oh, it's so easy to drink, isn't it?
Do you like it?
I mean, it's
Jeremy?
only... Well, it's just
don't say what time it is. I'll get abuse on Twitter when you do that.
It's only
what do you think?
It's still early.
Yeah. What do you think?
It's before 6 o'clock.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
It's got a lot. It's not sweet. It's got a tiny.
It's so
sour
easy
note.
to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a
Scary.
big gin fan anyway, but yeah, like the
I'm not sure
Chinese
that's the
Keith
benefit,
Floyd
it's
today.
like-
Yeah, I love it.
Great,
Really love
excellent.
It.
It
Good,
smells particularly good.
Well, what makes something craft? I mean, I'm outside of the drinks industry, so I don't really.
So while you're doing that, Jeremy, can you open the other one?
This one or this one? You want some more of the hibiscus?
No. I was going to try this one.
Yeah,
which
of
is
course.
We are
So,
going to answer Jeremy's question.
Craft is a very
Thank you.
abused term.
Right.
So the way that I talk about craft is that I think it's the desire to use the best ingredients that you can to make the best product that you can. So if you're eating amazing cheese from Franche-Comté, a great 4-year-old aged Comté cheese,
Yeah.
what the cheese producer has done is he's started with the grass, right? And he's decided that the best grass with the best cow will produce the best milk that will produce the best cheese, and if you age that correctly, you end up with the best product. That to me is craft, in as much as a brewer will put together for a recipe for a double IPA using the best malt bill, the best hops,
Right.
The best water, because water is a huge part of the brewing process.
So basically, craft means you're not lazy.
But no, I think it's
problem-
about
It's done the real way. It's
No,
done
but the problem
right
is
way.
these are marketing words, and I say
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
terribly as a
That's the
Unilever
problem.
marketeer,
Yeah.
is that, you do end up sort of saying, the word that I hate the most is homemade. Like, what the hell does that mean? Does
Is
that
it-
mean you made it
Or
at
made by
home?
hand is one.
When was it started? Who started using it? It's a
The
craft.
craft.
Yeah, craft. It's obviously clearly come from craft beers.
It's an American term.
It's an American term.
So we had microbrewing.
Yeah.
Real ale, obviously Canberra did the real ale thing,
Yep.
and there was microbrewing, then there's craft beer.
Right,
And I
okay.
think it's really important that these terms do exist, because it allows people to make a judgment on what they're buying.
Right.
But it has to be backed up with authenticity.
But so if
But they're not protected the way that
No,
PDOs or
DOC or
PDOs.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the real problem with that is that they will be hijacked by
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
people.
So-
But then
sitting
authenticity
in
can't be
Unilever,
hijacked. Authenticity
Right.
can't be
And
hijacked.
that's-
So that's the
okay.
key. Right?
Fine.
So if a large brewery brings out a craft beer, I've always been very sceptical about that, because I just don't see how that can anyway be compared to something that you
Yeah,
guys are
yeah.
making.
Because what they will do is they'll take a photo of some old bloke that they've picked off the road who looks
Right.
a bit, sort of hippie,
Yeah.
and then use him on the cover of something
Right.
to try,
Yeah, yeah.
to try
Hipster is
and
the word.
pretend that person is involved in the making process.
And this
they're
is why
not.
people get very upset about it. But actually, if
Right.
you go to the London Craft Beer Festival that was on last month, or if you go to Bristol Craft Beer Festival that's coming up next week, it's so obvious that these are products that are made with all of that care and attention with the best ingredients. So we can get upset about it, but actually it
Right.
doesn't matter,
It-
because people either see through it and they're
Sure.
happy with the products that they buy,
Yeah.
or they don't see through it and they feel like they're getting a better
You
experience
get,
anyway.
you
And
get
it's like,
different types of consumers.
yeah,
that-
yeah.
You'll be
I don't think it matters.
You'll be exposed in the end.
It's like
I think that's the question.
the drinks version of artisan, maybe.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly
Yeah.
right.
So if I can move you guys on a bit here,
Yeah.
I'm having a great time here. So I'm drinking the while you're all
She
chatting.
was actually lying on the floor. I can't say it now, because now we're filming this. We actually can't lie about
So
it.
this is wild hedgerow gin and tonic.
That's
Now
right.
the problem I have with this is I'll just swallow that.
Great.
Right, and
Well, okay.
really go for it.
So it's 5% alcohol,
So
5.2%
it's
alcohol.
not too bad,
Mm.
Yeah.
but
So
it's got that nice gin juniper-y taste.
yeah.
The hedgerow makes it a little bit earthy.
So you're getting chamomile, you're getting hawthorn berry,
I can get
lemon
hawthorn
verbena,
berry.
and woodruff.
Do you know what this would be an excellent replacement for? I've been drinking pucker bedtime tea and yogi
God.
bedtime tea.
Sleepy tea.
Actually,
Yogi.
you can have a gin and tonic before
Drink
bed,
responsibly, people.
and you get the chamomile. So it's actually
Yeah.
this actually is not a drink. This is a bedtime medicinal.
Do you think
Product.
do you think it's good for kids?
Can I just put a warning on this? Clearly for adults, and it must be drunk sensibly.
Yeah. So what we've tried to do
Before
here
bed.
is the gin in the tin again is a horribly abused product category. And there's some great ones. Actually, some of the big high street ones are pretty nice. Like the Gordon's G&T is not a terrible product.
It
It's
is not brilliant, though. Sorry.
But there are a lot worse. There are a lot worse. And what we wanted to do was make a drink that would stand on its own 2 feet
Picnic.
wherever it was served. So if a bartender was to serve this, it would taste as good as something that they were able to make. Now that's quite a big challenge. It's quite a big claim, and we're prepared to be proven wrong. But we think we've created something that has the softness, the roundedness, the intrigue, that kind of step up in flavour, excitement, if you like, but using completely natural ingredients. So there's nothing. I mean, natural again, very abused word. But we use a thing called hydrolats, which are actually part of the perfume process. So they when they start to distill flavors out of raw materials, there are all sorts of different phases of that process, and we use the hydrolats. So the chamomile, the woodruff, the hawthorn berry, and the lemon verbena are all created specially for us in the West Country. Then we use those ingredients with, again, natural quinine, and then East London Liquors London dry gin again. So it's a really natural product that hopefully just changes the perception of what a gin in the tin can be. And our little tagline, which we may or may not use, is the gin in the tin that changes everything, right? Because it's like, hopefully for the first time, people are going to go, yes, here's a drink that I really want to have.
Definitely great
What's
for picnics.
woodruff?
It's great for
Woodruff is a tiny little white flower that grows in hedgerows.
So, if you've not heard of Longflint before, you need to go into longflint.com. They're pretty much everywhere now, so you should be able to find them fairly easy. Great packaging.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, James. Now, we're going to have a little bit of noise in the studio now because Jeremy Pang, School of Wok, has joined us. He forgot to bring his wok stuff with him. So we've just got somebody just delivering the wok.
Lucky I've got a good team.
The wok stuff into the studio. This is what you can hear in the background. Now, you're a young. This is my research here, Jeremy. Young and talented chef, hailing from 3 generations of Chinese chefs, and you developed your passion for food, and soon realised the importance and sort of correlation, I guess, between basic cooking skills and eating well. I know that you've often been spotted on shows such as Sunday Brunch. You're the author of 2 best-selling cookbooks, Chinese Unchopped and Hong Kong Diner, and one of Great British Chef's friends.
Absolutely,
we've
we've done lots of stuff together over the years.
We've worked together for quite a few years, haven't we? Yeah, it's.
But we're both still young.
I don't think
I
Ollie
don't
is.
feel young anymore.
I know that feeling.
So just before we go on to what you're doing at School of Wok,
Yep.
The quality of Chinese takeaways in this country is dreadful. It's absolutely
You can't hold him responsible for that.
appalling.
I am part
really
of one little takeaway group actually, but it's a tough industry. I
Jeremy,
think.
it really upsets me because
Yeah.
in no way it's a reflection of how beautiful Chinese cooking can be.
Yeah, I mean,
it's completely different, isn't it?
I do agree with you. Like, if put it this way, even with the sort of takeaways that I've sort of worked with, it took quite a few almost years for them to convince me to work with them, and that, you know, it's a tough industry because the Chinese have been around for a long time, and you know, quite a few generations we've been over in the UK and all over the world. And what's very good about Chinese food is it's very adaptable, so it sort of moves across the world very, very easily within our communities. The issue is that I think over time Chinese sort of business people have been quite good at sort of saving cash here wherever possible, and we do this tour out in Chinatown. We take people round and we talk around sort of the development of Chinatown, where it came from. And actually, in the old days, it was in Limehouse, around that sort of the docks, the Docklands, and then sort of after the 1930s, 40s, moved over towards Soho area. And in the 1930s, the sort of the beginning part of the 1900s, it was, the trade was very much opium and things like that. So the people who wanted to move across and do something outside of dealing opium trade, they set up shop cooking in restaurants and takeaways and things like that. Obviously, takeaways later. Now, there was a bit of a lull, I think. I mean, I grew up in London, so there was a bit of a lull in Chinatown and Chinese restaurants as a whole here, where at the very first sort of immigrants that came over from China would have been from Hong Kong and sort of the Canton region, so that southern Chinese cuisine that we all know, sweet and sours, black beans, black bean beefs, all that sort of stuff. And then everyone became sort of British population became really, really sort of comfortable with that. And then after that, once it became a comfort food.
Where do you move?
Where do you go?
Yeah,
How do you move a whole population and what they expect us from in terms of Chinese
in their
food?
Head is Chinese, yeah.
So even if now, today, I do what I do and School of Wok, has grown as it has, it's still a very, very small part of the population, and it really is mainly foodies who we sort of cater for. Outside of that, in local takeaways and restaurants, people are the restaurateurs and business people are having to just offer what the local British community see as Chinese food, and that's a barrier in itself. Yeah,
but Indian food used to be in that bracket, and I think Indian food's now managed to move a little bit past that. Do you think?
But as I think Chinese food has, I think if you look at the London restaurant scene, which is obviously a microcosm of what's going on, probably is where the trends are. You are seeing the breaking apart of it. It's not just about southern original Hong Kong Chinese food. No. It's become much more complicated. And I think people are beginning to look at these cuisines more closely in order to understand actually how, it's the same with Indian food. What's Goan cuisine? What's Kerala cuisine? What's the difference between Northern Indian food?
So in your research at Great British Chefs, you said that 40% of committed foodies regularly cook Chinese food from scratch.
Yeah.
22% across the rest of the country. Only Indian food is cooked more regularly. In terms of Chinese food. How do you think people are beginning to look at Chinese as opposed to Asian, because there's a great movement, particularly in city centres, I think, of people eating Asian food, which they think of as healthy. So you've got you've got all sorts of things being sold, recipes and all sorts of things. Is Chinese sort of, I don't know, riding on the coattails of that and taking advantage of it, or is it making it more difficult?
Well, I think that there are. The things are driven by lots of different ends of the spectrum. Stuff like what Jeremy's doing with School of Wok is at the cook school end of the spectrum, and obviously cook schools play a role in this. There's obviously the cuisines of what's happening in restaurants. People like A. Wong, who runs the only Michelin-starred Chinese restaurant in London, which is phenomenal, in my opinion. Completely redefines for most people what really high-end Chinese, really great food looks like. But I think there is also... What I think is extraordinary about this country is we are culinary magpies. And what we are not doing across this country is slavishly recreating authentic Chinese food or Japanese food or Indian food. We're taking ingredients. Those could be udon noodles, there could be miso paste, there could be chili black bean sauce, there could be chi chow chili oil, there could be any of these things. And we're basically playing with them. And I think that's what is so extraordinary about this country is we're cool with that, and we don't kind of follow these kind of canons. And I think that when people say in the UK they are cooking Chinese food, what that really means is they're cooking their version of Chinese.
Well, they're cooking a stir fry and sort
absolutely.
Of, doing their version or whatever it might be.
Peking duck. And,
And I think I do agree with that to a certain extent. I mean, I've been very lucky with sort of my opportunities in media and things like that, and actually I've been pleasantly surprised with the response that I've had over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. When I started this business 9 years ago, I thought I'd be maybe running it in teaching people in their own homes for about 3-4 years and then have to go and find a proper job, but it has surprised me that the public are so intrigued by it, and I think that intrigue comes from the food and the culture having been here for so many decades, and it is much like Indian food, a comfort.
So, Jeremy,
food. Yeah.
can I just go back then? Because so you started School of Wok in 2009, at literally humble beginnings as a mobile door-to-door kitchen. Now you've got a very well-established cookery school in Covent Garden. You've been there since 2012.
Yes.
And in a way, that really has become one of the centres for all things related to Asian and Oriental cuisine, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got awards and Best Specialist Cookery School. You now teach over 8,000 students a year. And as you said, that wasn't quite how you thought it was going to go.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. It's been a tough week, so it's just quite, it's nice to hear it. But yeah, no, it wasn't how I thought it would go. I when I first started, as you say, I was going to people's homes, maybe teaching 1 to 3 people in someone's house anywhere across the country, and I thought that the only way to sort of grow the business at that point would probably be to sort of almost franchise that out to other chefs who might possibly be able to do that same job. That is in itself, in terms of sort of creating that ethos and quality of what School of Wok now does, God, that was a terrible business plan. So 2010, Nev, my business partner, joined me. He's a West Country chef, and we started something quite similar, teaching English, sort of Western food. But that grew quite quickly as well. But School of Wok, when we decided in 2012 to go for it, we thought, you know what? No one's really doing this, and we know we can do it properly because we had 2 or 3 years of training to sort of test out our customers, and that's how it happened. So yeah.
And in front of us, you've given us some kits.
Yeah.
So just
feel free to open up. You guys can take them home and try them. Yeah.
So I've got a School of Wok. Love that name. Okay.
Yeah. A Bao Bun kit.
I've got a Bao Bun kit. So explain to me what Bao Bun is, because they're
so Bao
trendy now.
So as Ollie said, the trends here, obviously, a lot of the time they start in London, and Bao, there's the restaurants like Bao. There's a very secure tamper seal on this. So but inside you'll see. The Bao Bun is basically, like, I would say, a Chinese burger, right? You have it in all different shapes and sizes, and the traditional bao would have come from the northern Chinese baozi, which is almost a filled bun. So they look like a large dumpling with lots of pleats all the way round, and with lots of either minced meat or barbecued pork inside, things like that. The hirata bun or guabao, I would say that the Japanese and the Taiwanese made them famous around the world, but they would have taken that northern Chinese bao dough and then made their own version of it, much like what Ollie was talking about here, how we sort of play with different types of food. So that's what they did. They went, oh, well, why don't we make a sort of sandwich bread out of this northern Chinese bao dough, see what happens with that.
Is that the one that you see like dim sum,
exactly.
the crimped top?
That's very similar. That's a Cantonese, the char siu bao, it's a barbecued pork bun, it rises slightly different to this type of dough. It's very, very similar, but it has a starter dough that feeds into that makes it crack open. That's what we call the laughing bao. Yeah.
Okay.
The laughing bao, because it's cracked open. It should be laughing at you. And then you've got the baozi, which was the original bun from northern China, that is in the same shape, just doesn't crack open. That's this dough here. Okay, that's this flour mix. So we kind of look at that, and we're very lucky that we work with a lot of restaurateurs, and we do a lot of consultancy and things like that. And when we do, we sort of get that insight to what the trends are in the restaurant world. I believe that it's School of Wok's job to take whatever's happening in what might be the trendiest parts of the city of London or the bigger cities in the UK, and really bring it to the masses and make people comfortable and confident to do it at home.
So I'm going to describe my kit that I have in front of me. I've got a bao bun kit, black pepper is mine. Yep. It says here I can make my own baos in 30 minutes. And I've just opened it, and there's a little recipe on the lid, so I can follow that step by step with lots and lots of pictures, which is great. I've got a bao flour mix, so presumably I just use this.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is if you wanted to make this at home, I'm guessing, Ollie, you might have made it, or you guys might have tried it, but you have to go to a Chinese supermarket to get the specialist flour. Then you have to get your yeast and your baking powder, and you're essentially making a yeast dough. But your yeast and baking powder off the shelf is nowhere near as good a quality or as strong as what you can get in commercial terms. So you would have to the rising time would be at 1.5 to 2 hours. This is 10 minutes rising time.
Is it wheat flour?
It's a wheat flour, but milled to finer grain than a Western plain flour. Okay.
So I've got my flour, so I can make my my bao there. I've got a black pepper glaze,
Yep.
so all of the ingredients in a lovely
Yeah,
shape
you can
for
either
me.
mix it with some beer, so maybe some craft beer, gin, whatever you want to mix, and then or some water, and you'll get your glaze. Yeah.
And then I've got a dry rub, so I can put this on my meat.
And
Now-
that's essentially a 5-spice black pepper rub. Yeah.
Now Ollie likes to cook squirrel at home, so
Oh, do you?
Let's try it with squirrel.
You could try it with squirrel.
I
this.
think the
You could
first-
rub that in with
That
squirrel.
could be an Instagram
Oh, yeah,
absolute.
nice. Yeah.
Squirrel bao.
That would be
Could
the first ever squirrel
Squirrel
bao.
bao.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, there you go.
You could rub that on your squirrel
There's
meat.
this evening's activity. Can't get squirrel very easily in London, though. At least when you want to eat.
And
There's
then
a few around my house. Yeah.
And then what's my pickling salts for?
That's basically a sort of crystallized vinegar salt mix, and it's a cider vinegar, and it's been dried and crystallized. And all you have to do is mix that with about 40 grams of water, and then the salt interacts with the vegetables that you want to pickle and creates more water in itself, and then you get this beautiful pickled veg in about 20 minutes. So
what I'm going to get with my kit then, I'm going to get some lovely meat, whatever meat I like, or you might be vegetarian and use something else.
Absolutely.
But then that's all of my glaze on it, and there's some rub.
Yes.
So that'll be amazing.
Yeah.
I've got my bao, which has risen. And
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's almost like a risen
it's like a white,
pizza in a way.
yeah,
a little
fluffy
bit.
white burger.
Yeah, exactly.
Bread, yeah.
And then I've got some lovely vegetables that I've cut up and whatever, and they're slightly pickled.
Yep.
And all of that will make me this lovely
Yeah.
bun, which is making me very hungry at the moment, which I can then just devour. And
Yeah.
I've just made the whole lot. And
I mean, if I had an
everything here.
induction hob in half an hour, I'd do it for you. But yeah.
And so the only ingredients you need to buy are the vegetables and
Yeah, I mean, we say half a cucumber and one piece of meat will do the job.
There you go.
But I've been pickling sort of pickled fennel, onion, and carrot, and that's been an absolute treat with a barbecue pork bao. So
I'll tell you what this is great for.
It,
When you have Sunday lunch.
Yes.
We haven't actually got to Sunday lunches because it's been too hot recently. But once we start getting into winter, you got a Sunday roast. You got a bit of that meat left over. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean the glaze. We've said okay, if you want to do it in 30 minutes, you stir fry your meat. Slice it up and marinate and stir fry it. But if you roast it, then you just brush the glaze on slowly like you would a normal roast. So it's very versatile, and what most importantly for us, it's all around fun education. Yeah, and if we're going to do anything, even if we're going into supermarkets, it has to have that fun and education.
So where are these sold at the moment?
Tesco and Lakeland. Yeah.
Okay.
We just launched 2 weeks ago. We're getting great sell through rates already. But it's quite an innovative niche product, so we're very excited that Tesco have backed it because that's something that I wasn't sure about sort of a year or so ago.
But it's interesting. We've just done some research which we haven't fully published yet about ready meals, and I'm going to put this in the ready meal kind of category in the sense that it's a cheat. There's obviously a way you could do this from scratch,
sure,
but you're kind of shortcutting it, so it's closer in spirit to HelloFresh, Gusto, Simply Cook, and all those kind of brands.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that how people are consuming this stuff, and I think it is. This stuff, if you don't cook, you are just going to be intimidated.
Yeah,
by
of course.
You have got to be somewhere on the culinary spectrum to kind of go, what is a bao bun?
Yeah.
Right? Most people will not have heard of them. You're talking about 10, 12, 15% of the UK population. And then you've got to kind of go, I want to try that myself.
Absolutely.
And you're aiding that process. I think it's really...
It's the next bridge for us. We've got books and products and things like that. But for me, it's about actually getting people cooking and sort of getting that tactile feeling with the food. Yeah.
Which is similar to what we do some work with Spice Tailor, who I think have done a really nice job actually of again introducing people to different types of Indian cuisine and different ways of cooking. Yeah. And it's a transitional drug.
Customer confidence, absolutely.
Well, I definitely recommend if you want to try some of these bao buns, you never tried one before, you need to go. Just need to go onto the schoolofwok.co.uk website.
Correct.
Is that where we'll find them.
Yep.
Great. And
/baos.
/bao, which is spelled BAO. Bao. And if you're interested in the cookery schools, which why wouldn't you be? You need to get in there fast because we've got 8,000 students a year running through. But again, go on to schoolofwok.co.uk and they literally get great reviews, don't they? But people
Yeah,
go
I
on
mean, the
courses,
school
they
runs
love
itself
them.
now, and I'm very happy about that, and people just love it, and it's just a very homely feel. Yeah, so you're all welcome.
Yes, all welcome. And thanks again to James Law, who didn't bring any Negroni in, but anyway, I'll let him off. Long Flint Drinks. We'll keep a great eye on your stuff. I think I'll just tip for the top, I think.
Thank
Don't you
very
think?
much. Thank you. Well, we hope so.
Well, it's going to make us all sleep better in the next 3 months.
It certainly is. Yes, have a little bit of that before you go to bed. And again, if you want to find out about Long Flint, it's longflint.com. So thank you to James Law and Jeremy Pang for joining us. You've been listening to the Food Talk Show. We're syndicated to all sorts of radio stations across the UK and further afield, as well as being available on Podbean, iTunes and the podcast app. And did you know, Ollie, we're on Spotify now?
Oh, of course we are.
Did you know that? No. So thank you to my fellow presenter, Ollie Lloyd of Great British Chefs. If you want to recommend any future guests, someone doing something groundbreaking in the food sector, get in touch with us via Twitter on @FoodTalk Show. And if you want to listen to any of our hundreds of podcasts, go to foodtalk.co.uk or via the lovely Great British Chefs website. Have a good week. Bye.